Okay, let's talk about Wonder Woman 1984. Hey everybody, Mac here, and I don't do movie reviews. I've never done movie reviews. It was never something I wanted to get into, but I did Wonder May. I've done Wonder Wednesdays. I've been hyping this movie. I've been pushing this movie. I've been excited for it because, Wonder Woman fanboy here. So I thought it was only fair to come back and talk about what I thought about the movie now that I've seen it. And this whole setup, I apologize, has been just thrown together to get this out. And I'm in my kitchen. This is totally my gaming headset up here, and I'm actually recording this on my laptop, not a camera, the proper camera that I use. So, with that in mind, let's dive into this. First and foremost, first question to answer, did I enjoy the movie? Barely. There was good to it. There really was. I don't believe that this movie was as bad as the internet is making it out to be. There are people that are calling it a disaster. There are people that are calling it an affront to filmmaking. I've even seen some people say that Green Lantern was better than this. No, it was not that bad. It was disappointing. It was very disappointing. I will admit that. And going forward, just so you know, there's not gonna be any spoilers in this. So if you haven't seen it, this is just my thoughts on it. This is what I liked. This is what I didn't like. This is where I think the movie was weak. So maybe little spoilers, but nothing huge for the plot. Definitely not going to talk about the ending. First and foremost, I think this movie proves without a doubt that Hollywood needs to bring proper screenwriters back. At least Warner Brothers needs to bring proper screenwriters back. They can't keep letting directors write their movies. Just because a person is good at directing a movie doesn't necessarily mean they're good at script writing, they're good at screenwriting, they understand how to write a movie. You had Patty Jenkins and Jeff Johns writing this. There was a third gentleman whose name I can't remember right now, but I looked at his credits and I'm willing to bet that his involvement in the script writing process was fairly minuscule. This was mostly Patty Jenkins, the director, and Jeff Johns, who is from DC Comics. So you have a director and a guy that's used to writing books trying to write a movie. And as we've seen with J.K. Rowling writing the Fantastic Beasts movies, just because you can write a book doesn't mean you're good at script writing. There were so many seeds in this movie that it had potential to be great. It had potential to be a big epic. And for me, that is the most disappointing part. That if there would have been a proper screenwriter or even a script doctor, if they had taken one more pass at this script, I feel like they really could have cleaned it up and really made it something great. First of all, the movie's 2.5 hours long. And for the first hour, it actually flows pretty well. When the first hour ticked by, I was like, okay, that wasn't so bad. Like, I've watched long movies before, things like Braveheart. This may not be that bad. But once you hit like the 1 hour, 10-minute mark, there's like a whole hour in the middle that, quite honestly, you could have cut 40 minutes of that right out. You could have cut 40 minutes of that right out and brought it down to like an under 2-hour movie. And I think it would have flowed, and I think it would have been much better. There were plot points in this movie that, for 2.5 hours, there were some things that they just didn't fully explore that should have been explored. There were some things that they didn't need to explore or even needed to be in the movie, and they spent way too much time obsessing on it. Things like, let's just say it, Chris Pine served no purpose in this movie. Bringing Steve Trevor back served no purpose in this movie. And I don't even mean to the point of, his character was relegated to a plot device. He was barely even a plot device. I feel like that he was put into this movie because Warner Brothers was like, hey, you remember how good Gal and Chris's chemistry was in the first one? You want more of that? And that was the only reason he was there. You could have taken him out and pretty much nothing would have changed with the flow of the script. They could have just taken him out. I mean, that's all there is to it. As far as characters go, another thing that was fairly disappointing was that Diana herself didn't really go on much of a character journey through this movie. She definitely helped push the plot forward, and I don't think it was a matter that she was ever passive in this film. I feel like that she did keep pursuing the end goal. She did keep moving things forward. She was doing what she was supposed to do. She was tracking down the bad guys, figuring out what was going on, and confronting them. Didn't have a problem with that. But then there were things that were brought into this movie that should have had build-up, should have had a much bigger introduction to the film than they actually did. I'm sure most of you have figured out just by watching the trailer, the invisible jet is in this movie. And the way they explain that is, they explain away the invisible jet in 5 minutes. It's in like a 15-minute scene, and then it's just forgotten. They never use it. They don't reference it. It's just gone. Although, having said that, I have to admit that in the way that the script was written, it serves more of a plot point than Steve Trevor did. Something else. The golden armor. The Kingdom Come golden armor. The golden armor that they've been using in the promos, the golden armor that they've made action figures out of, Christmas tree ornaments out of, backpacks, Hot Wheels cars, everything based around this golden armor, all the hype. And there's no explanation as to why or how she got it. And when she finally puts it on at the end, I feel like it's supposed to be this big, whoa, yeah, moment, but I just can't get excited about it because they spent zero time explaining it, where it came from, how she got it. I mean, they give it a little bit of a backstory that lasts about maybe 2 minutes, but they don't explain how she got it or why she even put it on. Like, there was really no purpose for her to wear it. I feel like that was something that was introduced because Jeff Johns possibly had the idea of going, hey, fans really love this stuff. Wouldn't it be cool if we put it in the movie? Yeah, it would have been cool if they put it in the movie, but it should have been saved for something bigger to actually have purpose and reason for being there. And more to the point, explain where it came from and how she got it. Acting was fairly solid. Kristen Wiig, I have never been a fan of. I didn't like her on Saturday Night Live. I don't think she's funny. Never been a big fan of her movies. Not even going to talk about Ghostbusters 2016. Just, she's never done anything for me. Having said that, I think she was fantastic as Barbara and Cheetah. I feel like her transformation from Barbara Minerva to Cheetah at the end was one of the most interesting and intriguing parts of the movie. And she actually has the only scene in the movie where I sat there and I was like, that was satisfying. That was a good payoff. That deserved to be in there. But you shouldn't have that thought about the villain and only the villain. I also feel like that for all of the work that she did, the effects when she becomes Cheetah at the end let her down. First, I'm going to say this. I'm not just talking about Wonder Woman 1984. DC movies in general have horrible CGI. They have horrible CG effects. I didn't bother to look it up. I don't know if their CG effects are in-house, if they farm it out to somebody else. I don't know. But they need to find somebody new. They need to find a new special effects department because their CG is terrible. When Kristen became Cheetah, Animal Cheetah, it looks like they put her in a wig, did some face makeup, took it down to about here on her neck, and then she was in a green morph suit the rest of the way, and they just CG'd the cheetah body onto her. And the reason I suspect that they did that is because on the close-ups, I swear to God, you can see the neckline where the CG stops and the body paint starts. And that was just terrible. It was terrible. She still had human eyes. I don't understand that. How are you going to make Cheetah and not give her cat eyes? Like, one of the things was supposed to be that when she became the Cheetah, she was gaining all this power, but she was losing her humanity. So even going along with that, and going along with the old adage that the eyes are the windows to the soul, when it does a close-up on her face and she still has human eyes, it didn't make any sense. I'm like, if she's supposed to be losing her humanity, why wouldn't you give her cat eyes? More to the point, I have bigger fangs than Cheetah had. She had no fangs. She had claws, no fangs, no cat eyes. And just horrible, horrible CG work on the body. And there are some people that have raised the argument, well, look at things like cats, look at stuff like that. It's hard to do an anthropomorphic human-beast hybrid form. Watch American Werewolf in London. Watch Bram Stoker's Dracula. We were able to do it in the movies before CG. Maybe something like this should have just been practical effects, prosthetics, and body makeup, and not digital enhancement. Just a thought. The one part about this movie that could have possibly been the cheesiest and most ridiculous aspect of the movie, the Dreamstone, the thing that they were making all of their wishes on. Because if you don't know, let me back up. If you don't know, that's what one of the main plot points is, that there's this Dreamstone, it grants your wish, but when you make your wish, it takes something in return. And Barbara wished for strength, for power, for popularity, things like that. I'm not going to get into exactly how she phrased it, but just use her as an example. She wished for that. She got all of that. She became Cheetah but she had to sacrifice her humanity. So you see how that plays off. Like the old monkey's paw. I'm sure if you've watched any reviews or read anything about it, you're familiar with how that works. So it's also probably no secret that how Steve Trevor ends up coming back knowing that this plot device is in it. Now, the way that they handled it, I was thinking, this is going to be so cheesy, this is going to be so corny. And without giving anything away, I actually think that how they handled this Dreamstone, this Wish Stone, was one of the better and more clever aspects of the movie, that they were able to pull this off in a believable way, so much to the point that even when Max Lord got his hands on it and he made his wish, I was like, that was genius. That was fantastic. That actually made sense. I don't think anybody else has ever thought of doing something like that with a plot device like this. So I thought that part was really clever, how they handled the wishes, how they handled the wish stone. It had the potential to be ridiculous, but it was actually a very solid plot to move the movie forward. They needed one more pass at the script. There was just so much bloat to it. There were so many things that were thrown in that could have been taken out. And a common complaint I've been seeing is that for as long as it was, there wasn't a lot of action sequences. And that is true. There was not a lot of action sequences. That if you're watching this and expecting some recent Avengers level fight movie, you're not going to get that. It's just not going to happen. This is a little bit more slower paced. Not that the whole movie drags. Like I said, the first hour and the last half hour actually move pretty well. It's like the hour in between that just needed to either have a second pass or just ripped out entirely. That you don't, at least I didn't really notice the huge gaps between action. And when the action did happen, it looked beautiful. Like Gao was just sliding like she was on ice through all of these fight scenes. But one issue I do have is that there was no big centerpiece. Like, there was no big, like, moment, big, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't even remember what the word is I'm looking for. But there was no set piece, that's it. There was no big set piece for the fight scenes that even when she finally came against Cheetah at the end, big surprise, she fights Cheetah at the end. But when she comes against Cheetah at the end, and I'm like, okay, here we go. The fight against Ares in the first movie was more satisfying than the fight against Cheetah, which is a shame, because Cheetah is one of, if not Diana's most iconic villain combatant, whatever you want to call her, that it should have been huge. It should have been this big personal throwdown, especially because they were playing it off that the two of them were friends before she became the cheetah. As a matter of fact, the two of them were still friends and actually working together throughout a hefty part of the movie, even as she was still turning into cheetah. And I was like, okay, they're building up to something really good, but then it just fell flat. There was nothing in this like there was in the first one. There was nothing like No Man's Land in the first one. There was nothing like when she rescued the town in the first one. There was nothing like, I said, the end of the first one when she was fighting Ares and Chief and the rest of them were out of ammo and they were huddled together anticipating the end, and then Steve blew himself up. There was nothing like that. That when the fights happened, they seemed like they were there just to look good and didn't really help to tell the story. They didn't have any emotional weight to them. They just happened. And that is another big problem with this movie, that we're dealing with Wonder Woman, a hero that is based on love and compassion and family and blah, 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 everything that I've been talking about since Wonder May. And there was very little emotional resonance in this movie. She had the big emotional speech at the end, but it just kind of fell flat because there was no... It felt like the speech was written and she was delivering the speech and they just expected you to be emotionally invested in it because you were supposed to be emotionally invested in it, not because they had built up to anything, not because they earned it. Excuse me. And yeah, I think that is the biggest flaw of this movie, that it has very little emotional weight behind it. Did I like it? Just barely. And quite honestly, I am willing to accept that I probably like it as much as I do because I'm a huge Wonder Woman fan and because I wanted to see this movie. I tried to watch this with two eyes, one of a comic book lover and one as just somebody who just has only seen the movies. And I feel like fans of Wonder Woman will find something to like about this, if nothing else, just to see her on screen again, whether it's the big screen or whether you saw it on your TV in your living room. But if you've only seen the first movie, I can understand why people are disappointed, why they're upset with the end result. Do I think it's a disaster? No. Do I think it's a horrible movie? No. I never once had the thought of, oh my gosh, they were writing this thing as they were going, like I have with some recent movies in the past 3 years. It may actually be the opposite, that it was overwritten. And like I said, they just needed one more pass. A proper script doctor could have probably done wonders with this, no pun intended, if they were given the chance, and if Warner Brothers had producers that took a more direct hand in things rather than just letting Jenkins run the show unchecked. I think that's something else that needs to stop. Directors are not infallible. They're not rock stars. They're not perfect at what they do. They're very good at what they do, but I think there's a large part of the creative talent in Hollywood that is forgetting that a movie like this is bigger than any one individual. It's bigger than the star, it's bigger than the director, it's bigger than the production house, it's bigger than the scriptwriter. All of those things have to come together to make a great movie. So what did you think? I have no doubt that if anybody watches this and they comment, I have no doubt I'm going to get atted quite a bit because there are a lot of heated feelings about this movie out there right now. And I just don't think it's as bad as people are saying it is. I do find it to be a disappointment, but there's a lot of sequels that end up being a disappointment, and then they come back with a third or the fourth one, and they bring it back on track. I don't think it's a lost cause. I don't think it's a lost franchise. I think that if they take the first one and they learn from that, and they look at what worked, and they look at the second one, and they look at what didn't work and what did work and what they should have worked a little bit more. But I think the third one has real potential for being something fantastic, and they can keep pushing this franchise forward. Let me know what you thought if you've seen it. Let me know if you even plan on seeing it if you haven't already. So, and also let me just say, Happy New Year, everyone. Play well, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.